You are hired as a product manager and you're excited to become the CEO of the product. And then suddenly, boom, you hit the corporate firewall. Now what happens? At best, you become a backlog manager because all your time goes into managing the product backlog, taking requirements from stakeholders, doing what they want, not what end users need. But then that's what happens, and you descend to something other than a product manager. But that's not the only who suffers. What happens with software engineers? Software engineers, they are hired to create scalable solutions, state-of-the-art technology, and so on, and they're excited about it. But it doesn't take long for them to realize that success in most companies means delivering more features. Creating features at the speed of light means success, even if you don't know what they do for the end users. But still, more features equals success. You get promoted by doing that. Some companies even pay you some bonus for that. And what happens with product designers? Product designers, they imagine creating the best user experience possible, making the lives of people better, and so on and so on, and making that intuitive design that people understand and it's natural. But then they realize that success for them means creating high fidelity prototype that will create friction with software engineers for sure. But management will approve the design and that's it. Nobody talks to the end users, but teams end up being trapped. That's the sad reality. And what is the real challenge of product management? The real challenge of product management is doing product management. Everyone around you is going to push you in different directions. And it won't take long for you to descend to anything but product management. For a long time, I used to do my best to avoid all of these situations. I wanted to skip companies that were not doing product management right. Guess what happened with me? For 15 years, I worked for 10 different companies. I changed a lot. From Brazil to Dominican Republic to Colombia to Germany and all over the place. It doesn't matter. I see more or less the same problems, just in different flavors. And now I see it differently. Reality is product teams are trapped and they need help to untrap themselves. And what I do is to figure out what is the next step to unlock them, to enable them to grow. And this is what we're going to talk today, which is untrapping product teams. So we will have some Q&A by the end. I will just walk you through some insights, some ideas, what happened. Don't worry, I won't leave you powerless. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to give you some insights that you can use and apply in your scenario. A classical thing that happens in terms of product management is the following. So let's say that there's this group of people here, C-level, leadership, or so on, someone outside the product team. And these guys, they have the power of defining what needs to be done, but when and who, even sometimes. They sit down, they have fancy offsites, and they talk and so on. They get creative. They don't talk to any end user, but they will come up with something, which will be a very beautiful, shiny product roadmap. And they believe that to be the right thing to do. They will define all the features and so on. And that's what you have to do. And then there will be this thing here, a fence between product teams and the leadership. And what will they do? They throw this thing over the fence and expect magic. They expect that they will understand. I mean the product teams, will understand what has to be done. And guess what? These teams will be just confused. They will start asking questions because they have no idea what is that for. Some features, predefined solutions. And some companies, the product team will be called as development team. Other companies as Scrum team. Others as product team or maybe tech team. It doesn't matter. The ones getting the things done sometimes receive solutions to implement without knowing the problems they are supposed to solve. And they're them asking the problem. They will say, no, that's the solution, and this is what we have to do. That's not an uncommon situation. This is what we face. And then it is about how we deal with this situation. We can bow to the status quo and get stuck and just do it, or we can ask more questions and challenge it and make it better. What happens? The reality is very simple. If you throw something over the fence, you cannot expect that people will commit to that and deliver on that. They will do something because they are paid to do so, but you are not going to get outstanding results because they were not part of that. But to be part of that, they need to own trust and so on, which we are going to cover in a few minutes. Which is another common situation in a company. If you look at company, there's a frame. It doesn't matter which company, where they work and so on. There are different teams. For example, leadership team. There will be another one, customer service, and more teams. And they work in kind of silos. Every team has some responsibilities and some things to be done. And at some part of the company, there will be product teams, as I said, Scrum teams, product teams, dev teams. And guess what? Every single team has in common. All of them, they have something in common, without any exception. All of them have the most brilliant ideas in the world. At least they think so. And all of the ideas are priority. You have to work on them. Product teams also have ideas. But then what happens? The product teams need to do the magic. You need to create a product backlog to accommodate all of these ideas. Because there you say no to an idea. You say yes, you put in the product backlog. And some people expect you to get that done eventually. But this will ensure you have to talk to many people and understand their ideas and everything, even if it makes no sense. But you have to talk because, everyone has an idea. You have a product backlog. And as far as I know, Jira has no limit. Or even if you use Asana or any other thing, it's unlimited space. You can put whatever you want there. And if you have fallen into the trap I said, and you became a backlog manager, yeah, then you're going to ensure your product backlog is as full as it can get. But eventually, something gets out of this product backlog. What's that going to be? A very fancy and shiny new feature, very beautiful, that everyone inside the company loves. Everyone is so proud of that feature. It's their baby. And what happens when the end users get in contact with that? They will look at this and say, huh? What is that for? What does that do for me? They have no idea why that matters. And the only thing is they couldn't care less about it. And they're not going to use it because it was not built for them. It was built to please someone inside the company. What's the problem here when you look at this scenario? If you want to create solutions that users love, they need to be in the center of everything. They need to be considered all the time. You cannot leave them out of the equation and expect them to use the product. Otherwise, you have a product full of features, but no one cares about them. Common situation. And if you think on a development process, from the moment an idea is born to the moment it goes live, what is a common scenario? A very common scenario is this. You will start with all the fancy, shiny ideas from all different departments, which you put in your product backlog. Then you are going to do something which is called a nightmare. Sorry, prioritization. That's what you're going to do. You're going to talk to a lot of people to decide which is the one idea you are going to work on. Or maybe they will convince you to work on 3 ideas in parallel and suffocate the team. But let's say you decide upon one idea. The very first thing you need to do is the design, and design to please internal stakeholders. And you make it beautiful, a high fidelity prototype. It's going to take a lot of time. And this, probably the product designers are not talking to software engineers. But then once they get in love with design, they're going to test with some users. They will do some user tests, but they have already fallen in love with the design. And they will search for confirmation They want to prove the design is right. There is a mindset of validation, which I don't recommend. I suggest having a falsification mindset. Prove yourself wrong. But this is not going to happen here because a lot of time was invested. And the more we are invested into something, the more we are willing to invest. Then what happens? You get proof the user test was a success. No mystery. And then you go to develop. Software engineers will complain, they will say something is not possible, and so on. They will start cutting some corners because they were not part of the design from the beginning. And you, as a product manager, you have to balance all of this. And then what happens? You go to the launch and you make it live. And everyone loves it, right? Not. What really happens is this. You put more crap into your product that no one's going to use it. And there's a chance a lot of people are just going to abandon your product. So again, more problems. In this case here, you can only expect to take very long to deliver meaningful features. You are going to waste a lot of things before you get something right. And the morale of the team will be dramatically down because no one likes doing that. Unfortunately, this is a scenario for many teams. I could easily say that most teams I worked with had this scenario. And sometimes I was contributing to this because I didn't know I was trapped and I was just following the status quo. But eventually I learned my lessons and I started challenging it. But it doesn't need to be this way. That is how you may face things. And then you recognize that. Then you can change it. The very important thing to know is the fact that 9 out of 10 ideas will fail. Yes, 90% of what you think is going to work, it isn't. That's not me who is saying. This is statistic. If you look at startups, for example, 90% of startups will die after 5 years. The reason is because the idea has no market fit. And when we have a product, it's no different. We have ideas, we imagine that will make the lives of our customers better, but eventually it doesn't work. So the question is not how do you accelerate creating features, and how fast can you drop bad ideas? So you want to find the ones that won't create value, and you just drop them on the way. And if by any chance you put that in a product and you realize it's not working, don't make the mistake of cluttering your product by adding features. Remove it, trash it, and ensure that your product has only what creates value. This is the question that I recommend most product teams to spend time with. And I always ask this question. When was the last time you deleted a product backlog item? When was the last time you removed something from your product? How fast do you test ideas with your customer? And I would say that the first part should take minutes. It's not hours, it's minutes. And then we go to hours, then maybe to days. And you see that it doesn't take long for you to realize ideas do not contribute to what you want to achieve. So now I want to do a product check here with you to get your perspective. So we have here Mentimeter. You can go to menti.com and then we are going to do it. I will also send the link just to make it easy. So how often do you experience the following? All right, okay, first answers are coming. So the very last one is getting a bold 5 there, almost there. Implementing solutions over solving problems. See, I don't say that implementing solution is bad, but first you need to understand the problem you're solving. If you don't, what is that solution for? An output over outcome. Features are means to end, and until they deliver value, they are meaningless. So you need to figure out what is the outcome for that and be able to change. And the second one is very dangerous. It's the opinion-driven framework, I call it. There's the animal called Hippo, the highest paid person opinion, who decides everything to go into the product roadmap and so on. But evidence should always talk louder than opinion and should talk louder also than expertise, because evidence is something concrete that you can observe. The third one, prescriptive roadmaps over embracing the unknown. One of the best definitions of Scrum I've ever seen is from Martin Dahlman, and he summarized Scrum in one sentence as using what we know to discover what we don't know. That is the beauty of Scrum. That is the beauty of empiricism. We have certain knowledge now, and we don't have all the answers, but we may have the questions, and then we start to discover things. So prescriptive roadmaps won't give us a chance to do that. And the fourth one, the deadlines, meeting deadlines over achieving goals. Some deadlines, they do exist. For example, you may have a conference that you want to attend and show your product. So that is a deadline. But most of the deadlines are arbitrary. We put quarter deadlines and so on because we want to hit the goals of the quarter and so on, as if the product would die after that, which is not the case. The most important is reaching the goal and progressing the right direction. So we're seeing here that I am not that unlucky. It seems that you are also facing things that I am used to face until now. And now we're going to talk about some things, how you can change the scenario. Because you don't want to stay here. This is not the way. First thing is to recognize this is present. Then we can talk about it and decide which action to take to make it better. So what really happens when we see this? I start by saying that challenge of product management is doing product management because everyone's going to push you in different directions. And when that happens, there's a big chance you end up doing what I call as bullshit management. And for me, bullshit management is something very sad, but it's present there. And I call it the art of spending time doing things that brings no value but drain your energy. And it's very simple, the equation here, the more bullshit you have to handle, the less value you can create. Very simple, very simple. Now let me help you recognize the traps that you are going to face, and then you can help your teams untrap themselves. So the common ones on your way will be like this: bullshit management over product management. And I put over here because it's very unlikely you can avoid what I'm about to share. So you cannot go to a place that is everything perfect. You are going to face a situation. You just need to be aware of that, and then you know how to deal with it. So the very first one is gathering requirements over understanding. So you need to understand problems. What do you want to create, and so on. The word requirement is a bit unfortunate in terms of software development because it's ultimate. It means that you have to do it. And most of the case, you don't have to do it. You need to understand the problem space and the constraints around it. Then you can figure out what to create to solve it. So your job as a product manager is not to go to a stakeholder and ask what the requirements are. You have to figure out which scenario is around the problem you want to solve, and then decide if it's worth solving or not. And then comes the classic one, which is most common the case. And I would say if you have more than 3 dozen of items in your product backlog, you are going this direction. I've seen backlogs with thousands of items. I contributed to that. And very simple. Just go there, filter everything on the tool you use that is not touched more than 3 months ago. Everything untouched over the last 3 months, remove it, because it is just distracting you. But somehow we are afraid of removing it. If you're afraid, you can just archive that and forget about it. You see that people won't bug you about it. But if you keep that in the backlog, then eventually you need to give answers to that. And the classic one, output orientation, delivering features at the speed of light is all that matters. This is a big, big trap. So if you see success metrics related to velocity, features, and so on, that is a big red flag. That is something that you have to address and talk about it and figure out What are the results? How can we focus on goals? Because when you focus on goals, you have the chance of trying with different solutions until you can get to the result. But if you have the solution, the goal is to deliver the solution. What if it's the wrong one? So you have no chance of pivoting. And one of the biggest trap I see, it's called this consensus. Consensus is really detrimental to product management. Why is that? Because then first, everything gets super slow. Everyone wants to weigh in and then talk and talk and talk. Then what happens? You're going to get the suboptimal decision. That's not going to work. An example I always like giving is what happens with me and my wife. We want to go for dinner. She always asks one question. Should she wear high heels or shoes? And then I tell her, shoes, more comfortable. She said, but it's a bit fancy place. Maybe I wear high heels. And I say, well, let's meet in the middle. You go on the right with shoes and the left, high heels. How is it going to look? So consensus. So we meet in the middle. And then the solution is going to be a Frankenstein. That happens when you don't listen to software engineers, when you don't listen to product designers, when you don't listen to product managers. You need to listen to the best option for the product and go for that. And it's fine to disagree, but we have to commit. An approval process, this is a tricky one. I call this as the PO approval lane or the PM approval lane on your workflow. So it means that you have to sign off every single item in your sprint or Kanban or whatever you work with. Because if it doesn't have the stamp of a PO or PM, it cannot go through. So this is incorrect. First, product manager, product owners become a bottleneck because you have to approve things. And then you are the quality gatekeeper. It means you don't trust the team. Because actually, great product management would be creating space and giving the right context for the team so that they can solve the problems with the best solutions. We can be part of it, but we don't need to approve what they do. We are to get on it. So if you have to prove, you put yourself in a higher level than the team. Just remove that from the workflow, and collaboration will significantly improve out of the blue. And how do you communicate with stakeholders? Maybe you go there and talk to them. How does it happen with software engineers? Do they talk directly to stakeholders? Do product designers talk direct? Or maybe there is a bridge between them called PM or PO. This doesn't work. It's better to be a catalyst and connect them and let them talk and figure out things. And also, it's going to happen sometimes that stakeholders will try bombarding people with some requests. But if we are aligned on the goal, they can just say no. You don't need to protect them. We are all adults, so we know how to work with that. But proxying the communication, it will ensure broken communication. And this one is quite dangerous. If you have to spend time talking why you failed, remember, 9 out of 10 ideas is going to fail. So you need to explain 9 times why you failed until you got something wrong, correctly. The most beautiful on this actually is the contrary. When you face failure, share what you learned from that and document the learning so that people understand it. You can't document on the step of the flow, what happened and so on, what you learned, and the others can avoid the same failure. But the beauty is about learning. And I wouldn't make failures dramatic. If you have an experiment and you have an idea about it, you know the expected result. And if you haven't reached the expected result trying in different ways, then it's a failure. Then you accept that and you learn and share the learnings. Don't spend a lot of time talking about failure. That's not going to help you. And good product management for me is saying no. You have to say no to everything distracting people from reaching the goals. But somehow it happens that we don't want to say no. We want to say yes and so on. Very simple. Every yes you say is a responsibility you get, and the no is a decision. So you need to pick what fits you best. Now, once you recognize all of these traps, you can challenge them and you can do something about them. If you think how products should be created, remember how fast you can drop ideas? You will have the same scenario from the beginning. All the brilliant ideas are there. What do you do? Hopefully, you have filtered out everything that is unrelated to your goal. So you haven't said many yeses. You have saved them and you have distributed no's to distractions. But then you have a lean product backlog related to things you may consider pursuing. What do you do? Don't waste a lot of time in prioritization. Pick the ones that are good candidates and evaluate them. All of them. Start evaluating. What do you want to evaluate here? How would that contribute to our product strategy? How is that related to our product vision? How does that create the outcome we are pursuing, and so on? And then you can just reflect on some questions. Can we do it? In other words, is it feasible from the technology we have? Would customers care about it? In other words, do they desire it? And would it be viable from the business we have? Then guess what happens? Once you start asking this question, it doesn't take long for you to realize that some, they don't really work. So you just drop them, say, no, that's not worth our time. And this is an exercise of minutes. Then you say, all right, now we have fewer ideas. Let's move on to them and start learning more. So when it comes to this part, you want to run some small experiments and learn from your end users. So you're going to do something very small, try learning from them if it works or not. This is an exercise of hours. And you're going to realize that some ideas, they just don't make sense and they don't resonate with your audience. But then the others, yeah, they do make sense. They are the nice ones. And then you want to experiment more in depth. Here, you may go with some prototype. You may create something a little bit more advanced. Maybe you create some interface and so on. Or you create a small feature that will be for 1% of your audience. And then you learn and inspect and adapt. But once you expose that to more people, then soon you realize that it doesn't scale. It doesn't work as you expected. But something got very promising. And this is the one that you are going to pay off all the technical debt you create. And then you are going to create a valuable feature. And you're going to launch to 100% of your audience. So you dropped all the bad ideas on the way and you made a launch. That makes sense. So it is something interactive that you start with small investments and you grow that as you have evidence justifying investing more. And then you launch and everyone is happy. So the magic is just separating the bad ideas from the good ones. You want to focus on the good ones and drop the bad ones. It's not that hard. And how do you solve that? You solve that with product discovery. And let me tell you, product discovery is very intertwined with product delivery. Because if you think that there is a separate team doing product discovery and another team doing delivery, no, that's not how it works. It works well when the same team is doing both. There is a duality, but I would say that maybe 3 members of the team, the 3 amigos, are looking more to the future. So they invest 70 to 80% of their time doing product discovery, while the rest, they invest in the present. When it comes to the rest of the team, they invest getting things done, and most of their time will go into the present, and the rest to the future, aligning with the 3 amigos. But this is a sustainable balance because the whole team has ownership from end to end, from discovery to creating value. If you separate that, there will be a blame game. The discovery team will say, well, the delivery team did it incorrectly. They didn't follow our instructions. And the delivery team will say, well, the ideas were bad, so that's why it will never succeed. But if the team has full accountability, you can expect for great results. And how do you generate great results? If you use the right ingredients. And then we need to recognize. So let's do another Mentimeter here. I will share the link also to make it easier for you. And then we can go. Put on the chat. So you can have here. What I'm curious to know is how you use these items. I don't mean you have them, because having a product vision that nobody knows is not using them. It's having a product vision that you use during your sprint plannings or use that frequently. Use your strategy to make decisions on what to say no to, your product goal to focus, and then create your product backlog to contribute to that, and so on. So just having it for the sake of having doesn't help. It's about using. So curious to hear from you. All right, so we are already starting. Getting interesting. It's interesting. Many teams don't know their business model because they focus on such a tiny part of the puzzle that they don't see the big picture. And I say that it's important to know the business model and understand how your daily doing contribute to that, because then you know what kind of value you drive and what happens if you don't drive that. Same goes to value proposition commas. It's just understanding the both parts of the equation. You have a product, and the product is supposed to generate gains, solve pains, and address tasks that customers do. So you know that. And these four guys here would say naming assumptions, testing them, learning from failures, and measuring outcomes are highly intertwined. And when we forget them, big problem. Because the first thing is recognizing that we have assumptions and saying like some things we assume is going to happen. For example, users are going to buy our product if we do A or B. All right, this is an assumption. Our users will reduce churn once we have this in place. It's an assumption. How do you validate that? And then it comes to testing assumptions. Testing all assumptions at once is a suicide. But knowing the assumptions you have, prioritizing the most business critical ones and the ones you lack evidence, that's when the magic happens. Because then you go to the critical assumptions and you test. And you see that something's going to fail, and then you learn and you measure the outcome. So this web here we have just created shows the ingredients that you need to have in place to ensure that your teams can make decisions. Because you can imagine what happens if we don't have product strategy. Then you cannot prioritize. Everything is a candidate for priority. If you cannot answer what is the goal for right now, is your goal retention, for example, then you can sacrifice growth because you are aiming for retention. Or maybe your goal is to reduce customer acquisition costs. You have a very high one. And what are you willing to sacrifice? And what are you not? You need to have these answers, because if you don't, then you are going to have a debate all the time and things will have different weight, so to say. And the result is very simple. Very, very simple. The highest paid personal opinion wins, and no one likes that. So once you recognize all of these numbers here, what is missing, you can start working on something. And you can look at me, wow, now I'm locked. I don't know where to start. I don't have any of this, or I have and none of them make sense. If you go by the book, you start with the product vision. That would be the right way to do, but it would take a while. But if you want to solve one problem at a time, start with naming assumptions. Because when you name assumptions, that will force you to test them. And once you test assumptions, you need to learn from results. And then you need to measure results. What this is going to happen is to prove that some things, they are better if they are not created at all, because they would be a mistake. then this will say, all right, so we are fixing our delivery engine. And now let's start fixing our discovery engine and having a direction. Then you go for the others. Start covering the assumptions and ensure you work on that. And then you can move to the others. All right. And to conclude here, I want to give you some health checks. Because what I told you is not all places will be perfect. All places will have some things to change. But you need to recognize, step back and recognize. Look at your product vision. Get your team members to talk about it. And then you start rating it. The same you do for strategy, objectives, product principles, business model. And then you start looking, all right. So for example, product objectives. Do we have it? Yeah, we have it. How measurable and meaningful are them? Actually, not really. Then you have to put it the other side. This is on the high level of product management. But then you can look at discovery aspects. What do? Do you have value proposition? How is it valuable? How often do you interview customers? How do you identify assumptions? How do you test them? And how do you do ideation? So you look at these aspects. And the secret is stepping back with your teams and also do that with business stakeholders. Make your problem their problem because it is their problem. It's the company's problem if the product team is not working to its best capacity. Because the product team in the past used to be a support area. It was called the IT guys, but now it's not anymore. Big chance is the product team is the business. And then you have the delivery health check. Look at things like implementation, how you measure results, how do you dare removing features. If you do that often, congratulations, applause to you. If you don't, chance to improve. How do you face failures? And so on. So do this, share with people, look at all of these items, and then you have your health check. My idea is not to tell you to change everything at once, but pick one item on each level, product delivery, discovery, and product management, and say, let's change it. And then you come back in 1 quarter and you see how it is again. So do as an interactive exercise, because this will enable you to grow and make your team a bit better. All that I have to say is you will face challenge. That is inevitable. But the magic is when you recognize them and face heads up and you are willing to make a change. And I want to conclude this by giving you a choice. You always have a choice. 2 options here. The first one is you can bow to the status quo. Get stuck. That's the comfort zone. You say, it is what it is, I cannot change, I'm powerless. In this case, you become the victim of the circumstance. Unchangeable scenario. Cannot do anything, you're the victim. Or you challenge the status quo and have a chance of a better tomorrow. In this case, you move from the victim of the circumstance to the hero of your story. Not everyone is going to love you by that. Not in the short term, but in the medium term. They're going to thank you for challenging everything that was wrong because you helped them create more value. Yeah, so that's what I had to share with you today. You can find more about me. You can follow my newsletter, Untrapping Product Teams, on Substack for free. There's also a premium paid version if you want to join and get more content. And the last part is I'm running another session of my course workshop, Product Owner Beyond Scrum. Some people here already attended, Atanas and so on. So this one is going to be the 1st of June and 15th of June. And for those of you who would be interested in this course, you can email me. Here is my email, and I'm going to give you an additional discount. The course is already on a discount because it's for the early bird. But if you want to take this step, email me and I give you an additional discount. So that's it for today. So I imagine you may have some questions.